Hi, everybody. We're here today with a special guest who shared part of his life journey coming to know Christ with us here at Oasis this morning, and just wanted to share a little bit with the rest of you. So, Fraser Hennessy, it's good to have you with us.
Thank you.
Could you just, in brief, share a little bit of the story that you shared with us this morning, that your journey to come to know Christ, just at the beginning?
I would love to. I'm from Nova Scotia. I was born in a place called Pictou, and my family was what you'd call a socially unacceptable family. The government didn't approve of what we did. My father, he was a bootlegger. My mother was a prostitute. And we kind of lived in that environment for a long time until I was 6 years old. And my mother moved to Ontario with another gentleman and separated with my father. And the government didn't agree with that, with a single father taking care of 9 children. I was the baby. So what they did is the government came in, the Children's Aid Society, and they took us, anyone that was under 16 years old, so they separated our family. And they put us into foster care. And what I learned there was running away and not trusting anything, especially the government. I really had a resentment against them because they tore me away from my family. And I was put into foster care, like I said, for a long time until I was 16. But during that period of time, I learned how to run away. That's what I learned as a child. I didn't learn love. I learned to be a runaway. The more I ran away, the more I got into this category called juvenile offender. And I ran away from 31 homes in 1 year. And when they labeled me as a juvenile offender, I embraced that because I was a runaway. And I really was proud of that I'd never ever stay with them. I was running away home. When I was 16 years old, I ended up flying to Alberta to see my mother. I didn't really know what my mother looked like, neither did Randy or my brother Keith. And when we were at the airport, Randy said to me, he said, "I don't know who Mom is." And I said to him really softly, I said, "I think that's her over there crying." And it was. That was my mom. And we went to her house and we got to meet all our older brothers that I had never really met. I didn't know who they were. And one of them was on a stove and he was getting high with drugs. And he said to me, he says, "Come here, bro." He says, "Come have a hoot." It was the first time I've ever used drugs, and I did it for one reason only. It's because that's what my family does. That's what I'm going to do. That's all I knew. I just wanted to be a family member again. I wanted my family, and I would do anything they asked me to do. It wasn't even a split decision. I just did. So I became a drug addict because I really didn't know what society was. I had no idea. I became a thief, a liar, a cheat. I became a person I'm really not today. I ended up with an addiction problem, and I found out that one of my brothers, Randy, or Keith, had committed suicide. And I really troubled me a lot because we were really close. And I ran away like I did every other time in my life. I ran away to Vancouver because I knew there was better drugs there and all that terrible stuff. Lies, lies, lies. Well, I ended up becoming an addict on Hastings Street in Vancouver for 17 years of my life. I was homeless. You would go to jail once a year for a detox. That's how I used it, as a detox to get a little better, to tackle the street again. And the last part of it, in 2001, I was being released and read a piece of paper, and on the piece of paper it said recovery houses. And one said Hope for Freedom Society, a Christian-based society. And the Christian-based really didn't hit me, but what really hit me was Hope for Freedom. And I wanted freedom so bad from this chain that had me, this addiction problem that I couldn't kick. I needed some help. I did ask for help and I got it. I stayed clean for 13 years there. And another sad thing really happened. See, I wasn't working on any spiritual, godly program. I didn't have God in my life at all. I was very stubborn. I just wanted the biggest TV, I wanted the best car, I wanted the nicest house, all the great material things that I thought was of value. But today I can say it wasn't. But then it was. I was on survival mode. And one thing led to another, and I got a phone call saying that my brother Randy had committed suicide as well. We were really close. It really, really broke my heart because I loved Randy beyond anything. He was my best friend. We hitchhiked across Canada 7 times together. Every time I ran away in Nova Scotia, we ran away together. We would meet up and we'd go home and get torn away again. But that was my brother. And he was gone. And so was I. I was gone. I sold everything I had, and I got on a plane and I flew to Nova Scotia for the funeral. I was sitting in the living room with my brothers that I really don't know. And one of them said to me, he said, come sit with your family. And some words came out of my mouth. It was probably really hurtful for them, but I was really in mourning, and the words just came. I said, I don't know what family is. I said, I just lost my brother and I'm mourning. I don't know what family is. I have no idea. And they took that really, really hard, and now they really dislike me. I'm an addict, and they disown me again. So one thing led to another, and my mother said to me, she said, he had a son, but we don't have anything to do with him because we're blaming her for his suicide. I thought I had it all figured out, and I thought I would be the uncle for my nephew. His name was Joshua, the same as my son's name. So I approached the house, and I knocked on the door, and the door opened up, and there was Joshua at the door. I said, I'm your Uncle Fraser. And I was trying to be a really good role model for him. I had about 13 years of sobriety. I was board of directors on a shelter in Truro. I was treasurer for Narcotics Anonymous. I had a full-time job. All the things a person could really want in life, I thought, right? The one thing I didn't have was God. I just had my own self-will, and I was determined to survive and get all the best and the biggest things in life. So 3 or 4 years, 5 years goes by, and me and Josh are having a really good relationship. We were walking down in Prince Street one day, him and I, and one of the kids from his school approached us, and he said, Josh, who's this guy? And Josh said, this is my Uncle Fraser. Or I can call him Stepdad. And I really was troubled by that. It really hit me hard. It really got my heart pounding. I really didn't know what to think of that. It was kind of like, I don't know how to explain it, but it was a really troublesome time in my life. I had actually no spirituality. I had no God, so I was just relying on my own self-will. I went back to the house. Now I was living there. She went into the fridge and she grabbed a beer and she said, Fraser, do you want one? And I know what recovery is, and I know I don't drink, and she knows that. I said to her, I said, I don't drink, why would you ask me? She goes, well, I don't think one's going to hurt you, is it? Looks like you need one. Well, I really did need one, but I needed more than that, and I did have that beer. I said, well, I can handle one. I had one, and I drank all the beer in the fridge that day. Ended up drinking every day, started using drugs again, ended up living on the street again. For about 1.5 years, I was living in Truro, Nova Scotia, right behind the Superstore. And if anybody knows Truro, it's right on Roby Street. And right in the front of the Superstore, I'd hold a sign and it would say, I'm down on my luck, can you spare $1? And the liquor store was right behind me, so that was my best friend. I didn't have to feel, I didn't have to do anything, I just had to stand there. I didn't have to say a word to a soul, I just held the sign. My face was behind the mask, and people would give me money to drink. Well, I got so frustrated with life, I just wasn't going anywhere. I didn't see any promise, any hope, anything. I didn't see anything. I missed my brother so much. I had no closure, no nothing. I decided to end it. I wanted to go see my brother really bad. I bought enough drugs and enough liquor to go peacefully into a next world, whatever that might have been at the time. I just wanted to see my brother so bad. I wanted to get off this planet. It was just so painful. Well, I died in front of the police station in Truro on a park bench. And when I came to, I had a narcon stuck in my heart. I guess I was deceased for 2 minutes, and they stuck the needle in me, and they brought me around. And there was 2 paramedics and 2 police officers. They brought me to the hospital, to the psych ward in Truro, and I stayed there for about 4 to 5 weeks. And I needed a doctor to sign me out because I wasn't responsible for my own actions. A nurse came up to me about 2 days before the doctor signed me out, said I was okay to be on my own. About 2 days before I was discharged from the hospital, she approached me and said, what are you going to do, Fraser? You have no address to go to. All I had was basically what you see right now. I had a pair of shoes, I had a pair of shorts, this leather jacket, and a t-shirt. I had nothing else. Everything else had been taken away from me. Everything. Including my self-worth. Everything. And nothing really mattered at that stage of the game. I really didn't want to be here. But I did want to get through this winter. I didn't want to freeze. She said, would you like to go to detox center? And I said yeah, because I wanted that 30-day program so I could fatten up and I could hitchhike back out west and get some more drugs. I know I could find the right stuff there to end it. So she called up the detox center and they agreed that they would take me, and God put me in the back of an ambulance and drove me right to the detox center in Spring Hill. That's kind of rare where an ambulance is going to drive anybody anywhere from a hospital. It's usually to the hospital. So they drove me to Spring Hill. I got there. I was there for the 14-day program. But the detox center for me really didn't work. It kind of just... What they did is they put me on a maintenance program, which, thank you Lord for putting me there, because I got to meet somebody there. But while I was there, I was on medication all the time. So I was liking that. They gave me Valiums and Percocets. And I was just on a maintenance program. That means I was just like this. So I was no trouble to any staff or anybody. I just went through their program. So 2 days before the 14 days was up, a gentleman named Art came in and he said, Fraser, we're about to discharge you in 2 days. Where are you going to go? You have no address. I said, I don't know. He goes, do you ever think about a recovery house? I said, yeah, now I'm on survival mode. And I'm thinking, yeah, recovery house, and I'll survive the winter. That's about a 3-month program, I'm thinking. And I agreed. I said, yeah, I'd go there. He goes, I'll make a call to a friend of mine. About an hour went by, 2 hours went by. I can't remember the exact time, but he came back in and he says, I just spoke to a friend of mine named Randy, and he's going to come pick you up. There's a bed there for you. And I cried, and I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it that Randy is going to come pick me up. And that was my brother's name. And I agreed. I said yes. I didn't even think twice. I just said, yeah, I'll go. Randy Perry came to pick me up on my discharge date. That's Pastor Randy of the Harvest House. And he drove me from the detox center to Tim Hortons. We got a coffee and we hit the highway. And some remarkable things happened from that day on. We turned right on the highway and we started going west instead of going back east towards Nova Scotia, Truro. And I said to Randy, Randy, we're going the wrong way. And he said, no, we're going to Moncton. And like, who wants to go to Moncton? You know, I've never been there before my entire life. Like, why would I go to Moncton? And he looked at me and he said, with this godly look in his face, and he had this spirit about him that was so peaceful and so loving. He was just a kind man. I never met him before in my life, but I know he was my brother. he said to me, he goes, trust me, it's exactly where you need to go. And you know what? I never trusted a soul from that day before till that day. I trusted him just like that. And I wanted what he had. He had this fire in his eyes, and he had this love in his heart. And he just had this spirit about him that was, I can't explain it, but I'm sure you all know exactly what I mean. He had the light of God in him. He was just a very, very kind man for the right reasons. I've had some bad experiences as a child in Catholic boarding homes where there was sexual abuse, and I never trusted anything to do with church until I met Randy. Well, we drove to Moncton, I agreed, and we pulled up in front of Moncton, and it was under construction. It didn't look very pretty on the outside, and there was a bunch of people from the shelter right beside it. The shelter is right beside the Moncton Recovery House, and all these guys were outside, and I said to Randy, I said, man, this isn't going to work, man. There's no way. See, I was trusting this. I wasn't trusting God. He said, trust me, man, it's where you're going to be okay here. It'll be okay. And I did it again. I trusted him. I didn't have a thing. I just walked in with what you see. And as I walked through the doors, I met a friend of mine. And I had met him in Truro. I was in Truro. I was the treasurer of Narcotics Anonymous. And I met him through the meetings. And when I met him, I thought he was going to die. He was so far off in his addiction that he wasn't going to make it. But we became friends, and it's kind of like we bonded, and we went for coffees together, and there he was. But now he's different. He's has weight on him. He's got this smile on his face, and he's got a light in his eyes that I can't explain. And he said to me, he goes, I'm so glad you're here. God bless you, man. And that just freaked me out. I just was overwhelmed with love. I couldn't believe it. That day I went into my room, and I sat in my room, and I was a little caught off guard how much the people around this place were so loving. They cared who I was. That didn't matter what I've done. They just wanted to see me get over it and get better. Nobody was preaching at me. Nobody was doing any of that stuff. It was just loving environment. And I was really overwhelmed with it. So I sat in my room, just like I'm sitting now, and I was very confused. Like, why would these people love me? I don't deserve it. I've done some bad things in my life. And one of the gentlemen, his name is Jamie Mills, came walking by my room, and he stopped in the hallway, and he walked backwards to my door, and he looked right at me, and he goes, I need to pray with you. Well, Jamie's kind of a bigger fella, so I was a little intimidated because I've been through some bad experiences, and I didn't want to be pinned in any kind of room at all. I was chained up, basically, with my own thinking. Well, he came in the room because he asked me, is it okay if I come in and pray with you? And he came in, and he put his hand on my heart, and he put his other hand right behind my heart, and he said, Jesus is with you. All bad things come out of this man now, in the name of Jesus. And he went on for about 5 minutes. But I was being filled with Holy Spirit. I didn't even know it. I just knew I was sweating, and I was cold, I was hot, and I was crying. And I haven't cried for a long time. And I just couldn't stop it. It just kept going and going. I went to the first class after that. I stayed there because you don't have to go to any classes the first day, so that was good. I stayed in the room. I went to the first class with Randy Perry, and he teaches a 12-step program of overcomers at the Harvest House. And the first program was a step where you have to forgive people for what they've done to you. God laid all this on me. Now I know this particular times he had laid this path ahead of me. And I was just walking it. I didn't even know it until a few days afterwards. When I was in that group, it said that you have to forgive people for what they've done to you. Well, I was holding a lot of resentments against the Catholic Church for what they've done to me. They really hurt me physically, mentally, and emotionally. they did a lot of abuse to me and my friends. It was a really bad place. And he said, you have to forgive people for what they've done. And I stood up. I said, no, I don't. And I had a lot of rage. I said, no, I don't. I don't have to forgive people. They don't deserve it. And he waited until the end of the class. He just let me sit there, and I was stewing. I didn't say a word afterwards. At the end of the group, he says, do you mind sitting down with me? And I sat down with him, and everybody left already. And he said, Fraser, it's the most important thing you have to do. And it's going to be the hardest thing you ever have to do. You're going to have to forgive yourself, and you're going to have to forgive people for what they've done to you. You're going to become a new creation, but that's the first step, man. You have to forgive. And I just, man. And he prayed a sinner's prayer with me that day. The next church services was Jamie Mills's church, the Glad Tidings. And I went to the church, and I seen all these people down in the front row, and they were bowing down, and they were putting their hands in the air, and that was a little freaky too. I didn't experience anything like that before, but I liked it. Something inside says that's okay. You know, how confident are these people to go down on their knees in front of a bunch of people and lift their arms up? Some are praying, some are crying. I'm going, wow, man, that takes a lot of strength. Who are these people, man? This is really crazy. The gentleman I was telling you about that I met coming through the door of the recovery house, he was with me, and he was a client as well. And we were just about to leave the church. Everybody's doing prayers down at the bottom, and we were going, okay, man, this isn't for us. So we were about to leave the church. This is when the Lord grabbed a hold of me really hard. I haven't let go since. He grabbed me by my jacket. We were about to leave the exit. Everybody's over there in the church, through doors, down a hallway to the front of the church. You can see it, like it's quite a little ways away. And God's pulling me. And I ended up following, just letting it happen, and I started walking down in between the church chairs. And Bob said, where are you going? I said, I don't know. I don't know. But I was, and he was standing there. We're accountable to each other at the recovery house, and I'm not supposed to leave him, but I did. And I started walking down, and my legs collapsed, and I fell. And I put my hands on the pew, and I just started to thank God and pray that He'd take all the bad things away. And I said, I'll follow you, Lord. And I have no plans on stopping it. From that day on, He's peeling me like an onion. I'm getting to love me, for me, and people like me for me. I don't have to lie. I don't have to cheat. I've stopped using drugs. It's been 6 months now. I've completed the 12-step program. I've stopped swearing, and I can't believe that's happened, but God has helped me with that. I'm working on smoking right now. That will come, I know, in God's time. But the biggest blessing in the world is to know that He's put me in a place that I call home today. I call the Harvest House my home. It's what He's given me is something that I can't explain. He's given me a family that I've never ever had. He's given me love, respect. It's given me self-will, that everything is possible through Jesus. Many thousands of years ago, Jesus got killed on the cross. He rose again. And here's the really, really amazing story about the entire thing is Satan thought he had won by killing Jesus on the cross. He rose again. And Jesus is alive today. He lives right here. He lives right there. He lives right there. All a person has to do is just believe and trust in the Lord. I just want to say I'm really, really grateful to have an attitude of gratitude that I'm alive today, and I just want everybody to know that there is a better way. There is a better way. If it's possible, close your eyes. Say, Lord, give my life to you. It sounds really, really weird and really hard. It's like a weak moment, you think, but you will be a much stronger person for doing it. Life gets better, trust me. I'm going to take an internship in the Harvest House. I'm volunteering at the shelter right now. It's just a beautiful blessing. I get to drive around with Cal all the time now. I have a new family that I trust, I love, and you know what's really, they love me. You know, who would think that would ever happen in life? I love you too. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Fraser. Appreciate that. And I agree with Fraser. You can invite Christ in anywhere you are, anytime. He's waiting for you. So if you want to hear more about Harvest House Atlantic, they're great covenant partners of ours in ministry. harvesthouseatlantic.org. Check them out and support a beautiful, growing, thriving bunch of people that are making a difference right here in the Maritimes. So God bless, folks.